By all logic, Dwight Gooden had no business standing on the mound at Yankee Stadium on May 14, 1996. His tumultuous journey, the highs and the lows, had taken him to places far from the bright lights of Major League Baseball. Yet, there he was, defying expectations and fate itself. At just 31 years old, Gooden had experienced the kind of triumphs that most of us can only imagine, balanced by struggles that no one should ever endure. From the meteoric rise that established him as one of the greatest young pitchers the game had ever seen, to a devastating fall that brought him back to the brink of ruin, this is the story of how Dwight "Doc" Gooden clawed his way back to deliver one of baseball's most improbable performances. The Mets of 1983, well, they weren't just bad. They were the laughingstock of Major League Baseball. Under the less than inspiring leadership of managers George Bamberger and Frank Howard, the Mets managed to rank near the bottom in almost every offensive category. The lone highlight? Second place in hit by pitches. Attendance at Shea Stadium hit rock bottom. Just over 1.1 million fans that season, the worst in the National League. General manager Frank Cashen had to act fast. The turnaround began in June 1983, when Cashen traded for first baseman Keith Hernandez, whose leadership and consistent play helped steady a roster packed with young potential. But the real spark for the Mets' revival came the following year when Cashen, on the advice of new manager Davey Johnson, called up a 19-year-old phenom, Dwight Gooden. Gooden's raw talent was undeniable. In the minors, he struck out a jaw-dropping 300 batters in 191 innings. Skeptical of his readiness, Gooden sought advice from his father Dan, who had been his baseball mentor since childhood. With his father's encouragement, Gooden stepped onto the MLB stage and never looked back. In 1984, the rookie pitcher shattered records, earning 17 wins with a dazzling 2.60 ERA and racking up 276 strikeouts to obliterate the rookie record.
Dwight Gooden has set a new Major League record for strikeouts.
Dr. K, as fans called him, became a sensation, and his presence helped the Mets surge to a 90-72 record. But if his rookie season was special, his sophomore year would become the stuff of legend. By 1986, Dwight Gooden was the face of baseball. At just 21 years old, he was one of the most dominant pitchers in the history of the game. Coming off a Cy Young winning season in 1985, where he put up a mind-boggling 1.53 ERA and led the league in wins, strikeouts, and innings pitched, Gooden was the unquestioned ace of the New York Mets. His exploits on the field had earned him endorsement deals with Nike, Kellogg's, and even a towering 105-foot mural in Times Square that declared his status as the king of New York baseball. He was young, talented, and seemingly untouchable. But, as the saying goes, the higher you rise, the harder you fall. The Mets' 1986 season was historic. They steamrolled the competition, finishing with 108 wins and cruising into the postseason as heavy favorites. Gooden was instrumental in their success, putting together another stellar campaign with a 17-6 record and a 2.84 ERA. But cracks were beginning to show. In the playoffs, Doc struggled for the first time in his career. Against the Astros in the National League Championship Series, he pitched well but couldn't find the magic of his regular season dominance. In the World Series against the Boston Red Sox, things unraveled further. Gooden made 2 starts but failed to make it out of the 5th inning in either game. For a pitcher of his caliber, it was a shocking turn of events. Off the field, Gooden's struggles were mounting. The champagne-soaked celebration of the Mets' miraculous World Series victory, a series defined by Bill Buckner's infamous error and the Mets' never-say-die spirit, was a moment for the ages. Yet, while his teammates reveled in the glory during the championship parade, Dwight Gooden was nowhere to be found. Instead, he was at a drug dealer's apartment in Long Island, high on cocaine. That day marked a turning point in his life, a symbol of the growing divide between Gooden the pitcher and Gooden the person. Gooden's substance abuse didn't begin overnight. His introduction to drugs and alcohol came in the minors, where drinking was seen as part of the lifestyle. As a young phenom, he was thrust into the spotlight at an age when most people are still figuring out who they are. The bright lights of New York City only amplified the temptations. By 1985, Gooden's teammates had introduced him to the city's nightlife, and after the season, he tried cocaine for the first time during a trip to Tampa. The euphoric high masked the growing pressures of fame and success, but it also planted the seeds of his eventual downfall. By the time the Mets' championship season rolled around, Gooden was a regular in New York's club scene. For a team as wild as the 1986 Mets, a group infamous for their off-the-field antics, Gooden's behavior didn't raise immediate red flags. The team was winning, and his talent on the mound overshadowed any concerns about his personal life. But for Gooden, the drugs weren't just recreational. They were becoming an escape from the mounting stress and expectations. The first public crack in Gooden's facade came in December 1986. While driving in Tampa, he and a group of friends, including his nephew and future MLB star Gary Sheffield, were stopped by police. The incident escalated quickly, and Gooden was beaten with nightsticks and arrested. Though he was never charged with a crime, the incident made headlines and painted a troubling picture of a man losing control. The following spring, rumors of drug use became impossible to ignore. In 1987, he tested positive for cocaine during spring training. Faced with a choice between a suspension or entering a rehabilitation program, Gooden chose rehab. He spent 2 months in treatment and returned to the Mets in June, but the damage was already done. While he pitched well upon his return, finishing the season with a respectable 15-7 record and a 3.21 ERA, his absence contributed to the Mets falling short of the playoffs. As the 1990s approached, the Mets' championship core began to crumble. Gooden's teammates, the players who had defined the Mets' success in the 80s, were gradually shipped off or released. Darryl Strawberry, Gooden's closest friend on the team and a fellow All-Star, left for the Dodgers in 1990. Keith Hernandez and Gary Carter followed soon after. The team's identity was changing, and so was Gooden's place within it. Despite occasional flashes of brilliance, injuries and inconsistency began to take their toll. In 1992, finished with a losing record for the first time in his career. By 1993, the once proud Mets were in full decline, and Gooden was a shadow of the pitcher he had once been. He was still battling addiction, and though he had periods of sobriety, the underlying issues remained unresolved. The final blow came in 1994. After a rough start to the season, Gooden relapsed, using cocaine for the first time in 7 years. The relapse marked the beginning of a downward spiral. By September, he had failed multiple drug tests, and Major League Baseball handed him a year-long suspension. The Mets, once his staunchest supporters, cut ties with their fallen star. The mural of Gooden in Times Square, once a symbol of his greatness, was painted over. At home, alone and unemployed, Dwight Gooden hit rock bottom. On the day his suspension was announced, he sat in his bedroom with a gun to his head, contemplating suicide. His wife, Monica, intervened, and his mother rushed to his side. It was a moment of profound despair, but it also marked the beginning of his slow journey toward redemption. After a full season suspension in 1995, Dwight Gooden's career appeared to be over. Depressed and battling addiction, he nearly ended his own life. But with the help of family, friends, and a new mentor in Yankees consultant Ray Negron, Gooden began the slow climb back to sobriety and self-respect. When Yankees owner George Steinbrenner offered Gooden a contract for the 1996 season, it was a lifeline. Gooden's return to the game started rough. His ERA ballooned, and he was benched after just a few starts. But when the Yankees ace, David Cohn, went down with an aneurysm, Gooden was given an unexpected second chance. Gooden's personal life weighed heavily on him as he prepared to take the mound against the Seattle Mariners. His father, Dan, was in the hospital awaiting emergency heart surgery. Gooden wanted to be with his family, but ultimately decided to pitch, honoring the lessons his father had instilled in him since childhood. The Mariners' offense was a powerhouse, boasting a record-setting pace for home runs. But on that chilly night, Gooden found something deep within himself. Perhaps it was muscle memory from his glory days, or the desire to make his father proud. Whatever it was, the Mariners couldn't touch him. Through 8 hitless innings, Gooden kept the Seattle bats silent. The 9th inning tested his resolve. Walks, wild pitches, and pressure mounted. But when the dust settled, Dwight Gooden had done the impossible. A no-hitter. In the Yankees clubhouse, surrounded by cheering teammates, Gooden reflected on the journey that had brought him there. He later called that night the proudest moment of his career. The no-hitter wasn't just a statistical achievement, it was a personal victory over the demons that had once consumed him. Dwight Gooden's story is one of triumph, failure, redemption, and resilience. On May 14, 1996, he reminded the world, and himself, that greatness is not just about what you accomplish, but about how you rise after falling. That's it for today's Baseball Spark. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible tales from the diamond. And remember, the game isn't over until you give it your all. See you next time.